Madam Chair, through you, the benefit of a plan like that is usually to show where things need to be located for resource management reasons, and I wouldn't expect there to be much basis for saying where on that site general offices need to be located, as opposed to high technology industrial activity. So I take your point, Councillor, that that's one way of achieving an aim of setting a cap on the extent of office development on the site, but it's probably not the best. The council wants to set a cap is to use the activities standards that we're looking at in that rule. So if you don't like 5%, set 10. If the council wants to have a cap, set the cap in that way.
Well, I'm just wondering whether it would be safer to have a cap on the basis, and I'm talking against myself here now, but on the basis that the LERP does require us to, give some priority to the central city. But maybe if we set it at 10% of the total floor space available, a total floor space that could be developed on the site. So rather than what they actually develop, but that you could, if you take that the site itself can produce, that the site can produce 50,000 square metres of floor space, then that would limit it, if we took 10%, that would limit it to 5,000, which I now know is a large supermarket. So I'm sure that they wouldn't want to build to that extent, but it would give a scale, a maximum to which that they could build to.
And then to ensure that the Manufacturers Association can go out there, we would probably need to delete the words that say associated with a high technology industrial activity.
Yeah, take those out.
To be sure too, I would like to know that you are not suggesting these changes to the rest of the industrial park areas.
No, we're not. And I do take your point about how others might want to revisit the zones. I think that Tate's was always a special case anyway, and I feel comfortable that we can limit this to that area, taking on board Paul Lonsdale's comments as well. Are people comfortable with that, Phil? Yep.
Can I just ask, in terms of the that whole area between Memorial Ave and Rusty Road, I understand that came from...
Well, we haven't got to that.
No, but I want to get there.
Yeah, well, are we up to that now?
Unless someone else has got some other questions.
We can discuss it now. In terms of the general points I was going to go through, we can touch on the remainder as part of as we go through the detailed provisions. If we wish to discuss the mail site now, we can.
Yeah, this is the Memorial Ave, Rusty Road. Yeah, because there's a lot of us have got issues around.
So I guess the first point is that I understand it came from, because in the LERP there was a greenfield business zone, and although we as councillors didn't know, in effect... No,
not that site. No, that site wasn't written in the LERP.
Yes.
No, I'm talking about...
No, it wasn't. I'm sorry.
Well, in that case then, what I'd like to know through you...
Not the Memorial Ave Rusty Road site. It wasn't.
Mail site.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it is.
No, it wasn't.
Well, I need clarification about that.
Because we sat down with the minister, we had pictures of how it had been cast. The northwest were all... the Northwest Review areas, they were all identified. This site is not one of them.
No, the Northwest area 3 sites are, and so is Mail site. I'll just show you.
Well, as a council, we've misrepresented this to the minister because that was not the advice that we gave him last week.
These are, I'm not sure which they go. I think that's 3, 2 and 1, and that's the Mail site.
Jamie should
There's 1, 2, 3, 4 areas here, and that's the Mail site.
Well, it wasn't on what we showed him, which might tell him.
Oh, one of the big ones, yeah, over on the altar.
Well,
Page 26, I don't know if it's the same page in there. Oh no, this is in the RPS, that's the RPS, but that's what's come out of there.
It's this guy's name.
Yeah, that was there too.
What's his name? Sorry? Yes. No, he's Mark. So I guess my follow-up point to you perhaps, Mark, is that if this is industrial, how can the aquifer possibly be fully protected, given what we've been advised by some of our environmental staff? Before that, if Brigitte, if you can give us some clarification about how this came to be
The
an
Mail
industrial
site
zone.
is in the land use recovery plan. It's the second blue site to the north.
Yeah.
Honestly, in the presentation that we had maps that we presented to the Minister last week, and it definitely didn't show that as having any colour on it. And we were told that there was work going on that site, working with the owner of the site around the development that was planned for it. It was definitely, and because we told him that it wasn't the LERP. I thought it was, and I told him on the phone that it was the LERP. And then when we got to the presentation, we had maps in front of us that definitely showed that it wasn't in the.
I don't know what maps you were given, but it has been in the LERP, always has been in the LERP, and it was on PC1 before that.
Okay, well, look, I mean, we can't, yeah, the thing is that, yeah, we need to, yeah. So I think we're gonna have to come back to this issue because, I mean, obviously we can't fully deal with it here because that is a different map from what.
Can I ask where you got the maps from for your discussions?
Mike brought them to the meeting. He had lots of copies of them for everyone.
If it's the map I'm thinking of, which was supplied, it was a map that I can't bring up on the screen, but unless I've got trim. It was a map defining the Northwest Review area, and that Northwest Review area was identified in PC1, proposed change 1 to the regional policy statement, which preceded LERP. And council was required to undertake a review of the future land use of that area. The Mail site was outside that Northwest Review area, and so on that map that you were showing it, it was for the purpose of showing the 3 business areas in the Northwest Review area rather than identifying the greenfield areas in the LERP.
No, but it wasn't a LERP map as such.
Yeah, no. It was definitely to discuss what the greenfield areas were in the LERP, and it definitely showed that site there, the blue bit in the middle. It showed that clear, but it was subject to was it a different plan change?
It has been subject to a plan change, but that plan change has gone nowhere, and they've agreed to bring that into the district plan review.
From memory, that plan showed the 3 areas in the Northwest Review area as blue dashed lines around each one, and the Mail site, from looking at a version Mike Thielen had the Mail site highlighted, but that map wasn't produced for the purpose. No. That map was produced pre-LERP, and wasn't produced for the purpose of showing PC1 areas.
No.
It was only proposed. The map was only intended to show when it was first created the 3 areas in the Northwest Review area, and if it was intended to be a discussion about all the greenfield areas in the Northwest Review area, in the northwest of the city from LERP, then the map didn't.
I think we have to take this offline because I think the advice that we gave the Minister was that this area was not included as a greenfield area that had to be developed for business in the... Yeah, no, we do. So we'll take it offline, I think. Yep. Tim.
A couple of quick things. One is, when we talked about this very early on with Mike, we mentioned about the special significance of the memorial, the earthquake memorial at Avonhead. So that paddock that goes through to the main road. So is that is that included in this then, as an industrial zone?
Yes, it is.
Okay, well that's an issue.
It's actually a greenfield business area.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we wouldn't want to put a 3 or 4 metre high.
No, that's
concrete wall
correct.
on. So yeah, so there's that issue.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes,
That area has been deferred to consider as part of phase 2 on the basis of the potential effects and the need to investigate that further. So there's time. What I'm saying is there's time to discuss that at a future date.
Okay. So just to kind of get a handle on what the council argued with ECAN about the future development of that area. So it says in the information that I've got that there's a the ECAN report and council's statement of evidence in 2005 noted that this poses a significant constraint on further business because the aquifers in that area are shallow and supply the entire city. Is there any way that we can get a copy of that report? Because I'm just thinking.
Sorry, what are you reading from?
That's just what I've got here. Sorry. Yes, sir. Environment Court was one of the council's key arguments before the Environment Court was that the land known as NW34A and also the male side is on an unconfined shallow aquifer zone from which the entire city draws its water supply. ECAN report and the council's statement of evidence in 2005 noted that this poses a significant constraint on further business or other activities involving contaminants. So I mean, it's, you know, if that's floating around, we really, no pun intended, but we do need to.
Happy to get you a copy of that report. That has been considered, and we can talk to you about that now or at a later time about how that's dealt with through the proposed rules.
Probably at a later time.
Yeah, I think we're going to.
Is that?
Can I get a copy of that from you, please, so that I can make sure I get you the right report? Thank you.
Yep.
The bit about deferring to the second part, was that for the Avonhead chunk, which there is massive amount of submissions on?
That's right. So
that's not
I was
part of the
talking
current
about
review.
the area south of the Mail site between Hawthornden Road and Russley Road. Yep.
That's the one that's got lots of...
Yeah, but there was also some potential change of use of some or all of it for cemetery.
That's right.
That's right.
But that would be now in conflict with the land use recovery plan.
We can't consider a zoning based on whether the council may or may not buy some land. So the zoning that's being promoted at the moment has gone out there, but we can't take that into consideration when we make our zoning proposals.
But, I mean, the point that I'm making is that if the land use recovery plan describes these as greenfield business, then are we allowed to make them available for any other purpose?
You can. It will depend on what activities are allowed for those zones. So,
But what if we wanted to buy it for a cemetery?
what is it for a cemetery?
Just in terms of the alert, there's an action in the land use recovery plan that requires us to rezone greenfield priority areas by 2016 as part of the district plan review. I'd need to check the exact wording as to whether it requires us to rezone it specifically for business, but given its identification for business, I'd suspect it is. In terms of use for a cemetery...
Sorry, did you say that because it is shown as business greenfield, that that it is now officially designated as that?
If I can use Belfast as an example of what's occurred there, and I've got that this relates to the conversation we're having because Green Space have recently, or in the process of acquiring land
For a cemetery.
for a cemetery extension.
We know.
On the map there is inside the dashed line is a greenfield priority area in the land use recovery plan. All of that area from Belfast Road in the south to Main North Road in the far north, on the northern edge. The land that's shaded towards the bottom around Belfast Cemetery is identified on the ODP as a future cemetery extension. And so in that respect it doesn't... because council's effectively got rights to or has acquired the land and is proposing to develop it for a cemetery, it's been deferred to stage 2 to consider the appropriate zoning for that land then, at which time plans will be more advanced for us as well. But we haven't zoned it industrial on the basis of what council is intending to do with that land. But in Avonhead, council doesn't own that land and doesn't have any, has approached the landowners, but to take us, there's no certainty about the cemetery extension, and that council's not got the ownership of that land, so we couldn't take the same approach as we're taking in Belfast, where we're.
Because I've now heard 3 different versions. So as I understand it, the area that the entire hall in Avonhead was full of residents about, in terms of the proposed business use, is now looped as business. And so our capacity to, that's interesting.
That's correct, and that's what has been said at public meetings. Hence the feedback that we've received is that both areas 1, 2 and 3 and the male site are in loop and identified as greenfield business areas. And we need to give by law, we need to give effect to and be consistent with the Land Use Recovery Plan and the Regional Policy Statement.
What, one, is it in Jerry's electorate?
Pardon me?
Is it
Oh,
in
no, don't go there.
Oh, right, okay. 2, okay, I won't go there. Is what power do we have if it's already looped?
It was mentioned before that the committee might want to have a discussion with Minister Brownlee about this, but currently there is no obvious action that can be had.
So
But if he took it out from the loop, then it would be all bets are off, and
That's
we can
correct.
go back to, okay,
Yes.
well, let's just take it offline and...
No, that's right, but there is still the RPS, because the RPS also gives effect to the Land Use Recovery Plan. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yeah, the
Regional Policy
the
Statement.
change,
Yes, it is.
yeah, no, not
The
the
map
3
is.
areas.
Yes, the map that I
All
showed you.
4 areas.
Yes, all 4 areas are in the map that's now in
Yeah,
the
but-
Regional Policy Statement.
Yes, but in the regional policy statement, it doesn't require us to develop the land for business use. We're not required under the RPS to actually change the designation of our district plan, are we? It is the loop that requires us to behave that way.
Madam Chair, there's 2 things going on. One is the standard RMA provisions that talk about the hierarchy of things like
Yeah.
regional policy statements and district plans. So the RMA says that the district plan has to give effect to the regional policy statement. So Justin votes.
So how on earth did a regional policy statement take bits of land and then pretend that the public of Christchurch had a right to say about what its use would be?
The regional policy statement provisions were put in there through the recovery plan process. So we're talking about the recovery plan under the RMA as amended by the minister under the earthquake legislation.
That's right.
So therefore, if the minister were to remove the designation from the land use recovery plan and it simultaneously amend the regional policy statement on either one, well, probably just one of those areas, then that would be sufficient.
Yes.
Right. Thank you. I know what to do
As
now.
a new councillor, who signed off the regional policy statement? Who signed that off?
It was
Was
in
part-
this map in Chapter 6 was a part of the Land Use Recovery Plan, which was out for public consultation, albeit I understand that, you know, the confusion in the public.
No, hang on. Right, let's just go back to what actually happened. After we were elected,
Yes.
which the Land Use Recovery Plan had been out, fully consulted, all of it was done and dusted by the time we got elected. The minister waited until we were elected and then started a process of engagement with us. And we got some changes to how it was going to be implemented as a result of some discussions that we had backwards and forwards. You might recall that there was going to be a dramatic change to the residential chapter across the city that would have led to, sort of citywide intensification. And we were able to bring that back into certain areas. this was not crystal clear on the original form that these were essentially areas. They came up at the very final stage when we were signing off on it, when we suddenly saw that the people who'd been lobbying us during the election campaign, that their worst fears were being given effect to in the land use recovery plan. And we were told, no, they were always there in the first place. It just may not have been so obvious in the way that the plan was described. I'm not blaming anyone for this. It's just that when people don't see, they weren't coloured on the maps in the first round. They were coloured on the maps in the second round, and we did ask questions about it, and we were told it's all right, it's all going through, the Northwest review, and the process hasn't changed. But actually, we've now found that the process has. Really, we've got to a point of we've been snookered and we've got no other option other than to go back to the Minister to review the designation.
So this is exactly what happened with the cricket oval in Hagley Park, and this is what I argued at the time, and I tried to make you guys aware of it. The same thing happened with Kenaway Farm, where they added it into the urban development strategy, and then what happens is the community cannot argue, they cannot get enough evidence, technical advice to argue against it, because it's already been indicated that that's what will occur. And the barrier that you put up is the hurdle that the community have to jump over to get through it is nearly impossible. And this is what happened with the oval in Hagley Park. We got told, no, it's a council decision, you guys make the decision. But when people go to the Environment Court, they get told it's in the Central City Recovery Plan, therefore we have to give effect to it, cannot be inconsistent, and we don't really have much of a choice at all. This is exactly what's happening with the LERP. It's exactly what happened with the urban development strategy, and it totally removes the public's right that be involved in what happens in their local communities.
The thing is that when you say that you told us that was the case
I raised these concerns
with the
at
thing,
the time.
we weren't here then. So
You were. This was at the informals that we had.
No.
It doesn't matter. It's
No.
happened.
We weren't
need to
here
deal
when
with
the
it.
Central City Recovery Plan was signed off, and essentially, I know exactly the difficulties that have been imposed on us as a result of that. So, but I think that that's a good place to end. There is no criticism intended of anyone here. I know how incredibly hard you will work to try and meet unreasonable deadlines on a, your incredible schedule anyway. And I'm very mindful of the fact that I am totally new to this the planning environment and like to defer to the expertise and the experience of the people at the end of the room rather than rely on my own judgment, which may not be well informed in these cases. But I'd like to take this issue offline. I think it's a good place to leave things for the day, and to thank you. We will try and find you another day though,
Yes, we will need
because
another day.
I do understand that we've taken quite a bit of extra time to get through this day, but it has been worth it.
Yes.
And I'm much clearer in my own mind about the issues that we're confronting. So thank you very, very much for your time, and I'll go and find some time in the diary. I'd like to choose a day when I won't be here, but I actually am interested now.
There has been an amount of information requested today.
Yep.
What I'll do is just forward that on to you rather than wait for the next day.
Yeah, please do.
As we get it.
Yep, thank you very much.